Alrighty folks, it's March and I've been using the Fujifilm XS20 for quite some time now, since October. So October, November, December, January, February, March. 5 months I've been using the Fujifilm XS20. So I've been using it for my travels. I've used it to film some of my YouTube videos. I want to give you guys a little bit of an update after downloading the recent firmware update, which is firmware 3.1. I want to give you guys my anecdotes about the firmware and answer if the autofocusing has improved or not in just a bit. In this video, I just want to share what I like about this camera and what I don't like about this camera, and just share my overall experience with this camera. And this isn't going to be like an in-depth review because I've already talked about this camera before, but I just want to refresh your memory on what I like about this camera. If you guys want to see an in-depth review, I'll just leave the link down in the description for you so you guys can check out later. Now let's start off with what I like about this camera. Body, it's small, it's compact. I really do love this camera for its like compact nature. If you hook this camera up with the Viltrox chip lens, you can actually put this camera into your pocket, and it's freaking amazing how small and compacted that this camera is. I traveled to parts of Spain with this camera, Prague, Vienna, Budapest. I only brought this one camera and one standard zoom lens and a small compact prime lens, and it was all I needed for all my travels. I had a lot of fun bringing this around because it didn't weigh me down, and that's a solid. Another thing I like is it's a powerful camera. It has a beautiful image quality. The images that I take looks great. It has the same sensor as the XS10, and I really love that camera. I've raved about that camera a lot and have made several videos on that camera. I just like the Fujifilm XS20 because it improved on certain areas, such as the buffer. That's another thing that I really like. It's basically unlimited now. Before on the XS10, it would slow down after a few seconds of burst, but not with the Fujifilm XS20, which is freaking great. Another thing that I really like is the battery life. The XS20 uses the new battery, and it's so much better for me. I really love this battery, and I love it in this camera as well. It's allowed me to shoot for so long with just one battery. Even filming my YouTube videos on 6.2K OpenK videos, it can last for like an hour before it like fully depletes, or even a little bit more. Speaking of video recording, another thing that I like on this camera is the 6.2K OpenK video recording. Now, like I said, I've been using it to film some of my YouTube videos, my talking head videos, and I really enjoy the look of it. The 6.2K is nice for the crop and all, but I just really like how the video quality looks out of this camera. I've been filming with it a lot more just to test it out, and when the autofocusing works, I have zero complaints. I have zero complaints when the autofocusing works. The 4K 60 is also a nice bonus, and it can also do f-log2 with 10-bit 422 recording as well, and all of this in such a tiny little package. Like, this thing is freaking tiny. Look at this camera, compare this the friggin' Siri VP1 Cine lens. It's about the same size. Like, come on. If you take out the lens that is attached to the Fujifilm XS20, the Cine lens is freaking bigger than the Fujifilm XS20. Like, god damn, this is such a tiny camera, and I really love it. Also, another thing I like is the grip on the Fujifilm XS20. It just feels a bit better to hold. It feels like there's a little bit more meat than the XS20, and I really love this grip. Probably the best feeling Fujifilm camera that I've held to date. Now let's talk about some things that I don't like. Although I appreciate having the EVF, unlike the XM5 that doesn't have an EVF. I've been using it in sunny places like here in the Algarve, and I'm having difficulties looking into it. I wish it was just a little bit brighter and a little bit sharper. I also don't like that this camera isn't weather sealed. The Fujifilm XS10 wasn't weather sealed, so I assumed with the XS20, the next logical step was to make it weather sealed, but sadly it isn't. And for anyone living in places where, you know, it rains all the time, or where it's tropical, it gets humid, just be careful. Or like, better yet, just get a different camera with weather sealing, because I've heard about so many complaints from people on Reddit, people in my YouTube comments saying how they live in India, Malaysia, Ireland, and they can't use this camera because it's not weather sealed. And before I forget, Fujifilm also didn't add a freaking hot shoe cover when I bought the XS20. When I opened the box, I was like, wait a minute, Why the hell is Fujifilm cheating us out of a hot shoe cover? Like, don't they know that it's important? Because now the digital context is exposed. There's no way of protecting it. So what I had to do was go buy some Fujifilm hot shoe covers, and this one is like, this one is a Fuji X branded hot shoe cover, and I had to buy this on Amazon just to give it a little bit of protection. So there's that, guys. So freaking Fuji, fuck out of here, man. Come on, just give us the damn hot shoe cover. It's just one of those moves where it just makes my eyes like just twitch a little. Look, like, are you trying to piss off your customer base, Fujifilm? Like, it's bad enough that your autofocusing is bad, but you want to remove the hot shoe cover as well? Like, are times rough out there for a multi-billion-dollar company? Are the CEOs not making their bonuses this year or something? Speaking of autofocus, when I was on firmware 3.0, I did notice that the autofocusing wasn't as sticky. The eye tracking box would just go back and forth, and it looked really, really bad. It has some pulsing issues in the background as well. I had a few people telling me to update to the current firmware, which is 3.1. And I did see some minor improvements, like the eye tracking was a bit stickier. It held the subject just a bit better. I gotta say this, there was this one isolated incident where my wife was using my XS20. She's a content creator, so she also likes filming on Fujifilm because she likes how her skin tones and the colors look from a Fujifilm camera. I tried to get her on a Sony. She did not like the colors. When she was filming herself this one particular time, the videos were not in focus. And she was really, really upset. She wasted so much of her time. I told her it's like a Fujifilm problem. It's not a you thing. And she said, what is there to do? I'm like, you can either redo it or I can just try to run a program through it. She didn't want to redo it. It's a waste of time for her. So I had to run that autofocus video through a program like Topaz AI to save the footage because she didn't want to film it. Now, for someone who's running a business, this could be frustrating, like my wife over here. She had deadlines to meet. She didn't have time to spend setting up the camera again, doing her makeup again, setting up the lights again, and film for hours on end. So I don't think the Fujifilm XS20 is a reliable camera when it comes to autofocus. And this is with the current firmware, and it was just a talking head video as well. One person in the frame, no dynamic scene, yet it didn't want to focus on that one person that was in the frame. One could argue that it was like user error. I've seen this playbook so many times before, so there's no way I'm accepting that as an excuse. And I just think that Fujifilm's autofocusing is still trash in 2025. And when it comes to my YouTube videos, I've noticed that they go in and out as well. It's not as bad as what my wife had. I shared this on my social media as well, where I was just talking and it decided to just go out of focus for a bit before it latches back onto me, which is crazy. There are still some quirks like that I'm not a fan of when it comes to the autofocus. It still sucks. It has improved, yes, but it still lags behind the competition. The Sony a6700, being like the direct competitor due to its pricing, has better autofocusing than the Fujifilm XS20. When it comes to photography, I only use single point autofocusing on this camera. The tracking is not up to par. I don't see a difference in that regard. And again, this is just me sharing with you guys my anecdotes because I'm tired of doing these autofocusing tests. It's just so stressful and it just pisses me off so much. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. If it works for you, then fine, that's great and all. Just don't discount all the other people who shares their frustration about their autofocusing as well. And I think what Fuji is trying to do is they're trying to, tire us. They're trying to tire us out by giving us temporary fixes. I don't think they can give us like a full fix, like a full solution. So they keep teasing us with these minor updates and minor autofocusing improvements, tricking us into thinking that they did something. And for me, it's just so tiring and exhausting to hear people say, you have to download the latest firmware, it's so much better. And when I download it, guess what? It's just the same shit. If anything, it didn't improve, it just improved this way. It moved laterally. It would improve in one areas, but then shit in some other areas. Like, they tire us out so that we don't mention it anymore, and I guess it's working. I just come to accept that we're not going to get good autofocusing with this generation of cameras with these new X-Trans processor. So what can you do instead? Don't rely on AFC. For what I do with this camera, I'm happy with AFS, single point autofocusing. That works best for me, and I can still get great shots with that. If you're recording talking head videos, just be mindful. Perhaps just check yourself every few minutes to see if you're in focus, or just like, you know, get yourself like a monitor so that you can see if anything is, if the footage is looking good or not. Or you can just use manual focus and just focus manually. Now this camera does so many things that is great, such as their photo quality. It's beautiful. The video quality also beautiful. It's small, it's compact. The battery life is amazing. For whatever reason, Fujifilm still can't get their autofocusing right, in my opinion. It's not as reliable as I would hope with this current firmware. And perhaps because I've been using other camera system, I've been a bit spoiled, so oh no. So that is something to take into consideration. But why shouldn't Fuji have reliable focus like their peers, you know? If you're paying this much money, wouldn't you want good autofocus? Why are we just settling for, oh, good enough, or settling for this is an improvement, you know what I'm saying? Now I know some folks will say, well, that's why I use my Fuji for this, and I have another camera system for reliable autofocusing. Some people don't have that luxury. For some, this could be their first camera, and I don't know about you. When I was a first-time camera buyer, I wanted to maximize every dollar and squeeze as much value that I can out of the camera. Saying that, you gotta do your due diligence, people. I can only share with you guys my experience. I still think this camera is awesome because I can put up with their quirks. Because I've been shooting with the Fujifilm system for so long, I understand it. I still use it for photos and as well for my YouTube videos as well. It's going to be my travel camera for the foreseeable future. If you're interested in this camera, I'll leave the links down in the description below. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Do you like the Fujifilm XS20? Comment down below and consider subscribing for more Fujifilm content. And thanks so much.